When the clock struck midnight on our 10th anniversary, I sold every piece of our life together for a mere $15,000, leaving only the echo of his infidelity behind. He married her a week later, blissfully unaware that I had vanished with the memories, the laughter, and the dreams we once shared. I stood in the shadows of their wedding, clutching the last remnants of our shattered family, a ghost among the living. My heart shattered alongside the vows he exchanged with her, but I held the ultimate secret, a new beginning crafted from his betrayal. My name is Clara. I am not just a victim, I am reborn from the ashes of his deceit. As I stood there, watching David pledge his life to another woman, a tempest of emotions surged within me. I felt as if I were trapped in a surreal nightmare, one where the rules of reality had shifted, leaving me adrift. I had given him everything, my love, my loyalty, my very essence, and yet here I was, a mere spectator at my own funeral. The weight of betrayal sat heavily on my chest, an anchor that threatened to drag me into an abyss of despair. But amidst the chaos of my emotions, the secret I held became a flickering flame of hope. I had sold everything we owned, liquidated our shared dreams, and tucked away that cash, ready to forge a new path for me and Mark. I recalled the late nights I spent poring over listings for small apartments, imagining the kind of life we could build without the shadow of David looming over us. I envisioned a home filled with laughter again, where Mark could thrive unburdened by the dark clouds that had gathered above us. It was a daunting task, but every ounce of pain I felt turned into resolve, galvanizing me to move forward. I had always been the caretaker, the one who made sacrifices, but in this moment, I realized that I had to prioritize my own happiness and the well-being of my son. After the wedding, I walked away from the venue, my heart heavy, but my mind racing. I needed to reach out to Lily. She was the one person who always believed in my strength, who could help me navigate this tumultuous sea of betrayal. I picked up my phone, hands trembling slightly as I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, her voice a balm to my frayed nerves. "Clara, is everything okay?" she asked, immediately sensing my distress. "No," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "David, just marry her." There was a brief silence, heavy with the weight of my words. I could hear Lily inhale sharply, her shock palpable even through the phone. "Oh, Clara, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" Her empathy felt like a warm embrace, and I found myself spilling my heart to her, recounting the betrayal and my secret plans for a fresh start. "I've sold everything, Lily, the house, the car, everything. I have enough to get us out of here, but I need your help to figure out the next steps." I could sense the gears turning in her mind as she processed my revelation. "You are so brave, Clara. We can do this together. Where do you want to go?" I paused, contemplating the possibilities. My heart yearned for a place that felt safe, a refuge for me and Mark. Maybe a small apartment downtown, somewhere near the school. I want Mark to be comfortable. I don't want him to feel uprooted. Lily agreed, her enthusiasm bubbling through the line. "Let's start looking tomorrow. I'll help you with everything." As we hung up, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps this was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to reclaim my life and redefine my identity beyond the role of David's wife. The next day, we plunged into a whirlwind of apartment viewings, each space offering a glimpse of a new life. Some were charming, with sun-drenched windows and quirky layouts, while others felt stifling, as if they held too many memories of families that weren't mine. I noticed how Mark's eyes lit up when he explored each possibility, and that spark of joy fueled my determination to make the right choice. One particular apartment caught my eye. It was modest but cozy, with a small balcony overlooking a bustling street filled with cafes and shops. I could already picture us settling in, Mark studying at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner. I felt a sense of peace wash over me as I envisioned our new beginning, each day no longer shadowed by David's betrayal. As the weeks passed, I found myself slowly transforming. I immersed myself in the process of creating a new home, filling it with things that inspired me and made me smile. I painted the walls a soft yellow, hung photographs of Mark and me from happier times, and filled the shelves with books I had longed to read but never found the time for. Lily was there every step of the way, cheering me on and helping me adjust to this fresh chapter. However, the emotional toll of the divorce still lingered. I often found myself staring out of the window, my thoughts drifting to what could have been. Memories of David flickered through my mind like shadows, taunting me with what I once held dear. Yet, each time I felt that familiar ache, I reminded myself of the strength that had surged through me when I made the choice to leave. I was carving a path for Mark and me, one that was no longer intertwined with the past. One evening, as I prepared dinner, I heard the key turn in the lock, and Mark bounded in, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom, you won't believe what happened today," he exclaimed, tossing his backpack on the floor. The joy radiating from him was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile as he dove into a story about his day at school. Listening to him, I realized how resilient he was, how much he had grown through all the turmoil. "Tell me everything," I encouraged, setting the table as he recounted his day. His laughter filled the small apartment, filling it with a warmth that made me believe in the possibility of happiness again. In that moment, I understood that we were forging our own family, one built on love, resilience, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. For the first time since David's betrayal, I felt a sense of freedom take root within me. I was Clara, not just a wife or a mother, but a woman reclaiming her power, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but I was no longer afraid. I had my son, my friend, and a burgeoning sense of self, a life waiting to be lived. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of my once happy home. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and as I poured myself a steaming cup, I took a moment to appreciate the silence that enveloped me. Mark was still asleep, blissfully unaware of the tumultuous emotions swirling around him. I allowed myself a small smile, thinking of the path I was carving out for us, one that didn't involve David or the shadows of his betrayal. With each sip of coffee, my resolve grew stronger. I had been defined by my roles for so long, David's wife, Mark's mother, that I had almost forgotten who Clara truly was. Today, I decided, would mark the beginning of my transformation. I grabbed a notepad and started jotting down ideas, aspirations that had long been buried beneath the weight of my marital responsibilities. I envisioned a small art studio where I could paint, a passion I had neglected for years. The thought of expressing myself creatively filled me with excitement, igniting a spark I thought had been extinguished. As I flipped through the notepad, Lily texted me, "Coffee? My treat." I replied with a quick yes, feeling grateful for her unyielding support. She had been my anchor through this storm, encouraging me to focus on rebuilding my life. When I arrived at our favorite cafe, the smell of pastries and the sound of laughter greeted me. Lily was already at our usual table, her bright smile cutting through the haze of my recent heartache. "Clara," she exclaimed, standing to hug me tightly. "You look different, like you've finally woken up." I felt the warmth of her words wrap around me, reinforcing my newfound determination. "You're finally letting go of the past," she continued, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Tell me everything." As I shared my plans for the art studio, Lily listened intently, her enthusiasm matching my own. "You have to do this, Clara. You need a space that's just yours. It'll be therapeutic, and think of all the beautiful things you can create." Her excitement was contagious, and I couldn't help but envision the possibilities unfolding before me. Mark arrived just as we finished our drinks, his teenage energy radiating from him. "What are you two talking about?" he asked, curiosity etched on his face. I exchanged a glance with Lily, and without hesitation, I decided to share my dreams with him. "I want to start an art studio, Mark, a place where I can paint and express myself." He raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth turning up slightly. "That sounds cool, Mom. I've seen your sketches. You're really talented." His validation was a balm to my soul. "Do you think I could help you?" he asked, surprising me. "Maybe I could help design the space or even create some pieces with you." Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, overwhelmed by the thought of including him in this journey. "Absolutely, we can make it a project together." In that moment, I realized that this was not just about my healing. It was about strengthening our bond as mother and son, teaching him the importance of following one's passion despite life's challenges. The day unfolded in a whirlwind of ideas and excitement, and as I returned home, I felt lighter than I had in months. I settled down at the kitchen table with a sketchbook, allowing my pencil to glide across the pages, capturing the vision of my studio. I imagined vibrant colors splashing across the walls, an inviting space filled with light and laughter, where Mark and I could bond over creativity. In the midst of my artistic reverie, my phone buzzed with a text from David. My heart raced as I read his words. "Can we talk?" The sense of dread washed over me, but I reminded myself that I was no longer the fearful woman he once knew. I was Clara, ready to confront whatever he had to say. With a deep breath, I replied, "Sure, let's meet." I chose a public park, a neutral ground where I felt secure. When I arrived, David was already sitting on a bench, his expression a mixture of anxiety and regret. I took a seat across from him, my heart pounding in my chest. "Clara, I've been thinking," he began, his voice shaky. "I know I've hurt you, and I can't take back what I did. But I want to be part of Mark's life. I want to make things right." I studied his face, searching for sincerity. Part of me wanted to believe he had changed, but the other part of me, a part that had fought so hard to reclaim my identity, reminded me of the pain he had caused. "I appreciate you wanting to be involved with Mark," I said cautiously, "but you have to understand that I've made decisions for my life too. I won't let your presence disrupt the new path I'm carving out for us." David looked stunned, as if my words had struck him. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" "More serious than I've ever been," I replied firmly. "I have dreams, and I'm ready to pursue them. I need you to respect that." The tension hung between us like a thick fog, but I felt empowered. This was my moment of clarity. I wouldn't let his regrets redefine me or my future. As I walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The conversation with David had not changed my course, but it had solidified my resolve. Returning home, I opened my sketchbook again, pouring my heart into the blank pages, envisioning a life filled with color and creativity. In that moment, I knew I was not just surviving, I was thriving. The road ahead might be uncertain, but it was mine to travel, and I was ready to embrace every turn. Subscribe now to continue following Clara's journey of self-discovery and resilience as she navigates the complexities of love, betrayal, and the pursuit of happiness. The first morning after I packed my bags felt surreal. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty counter where we used to share breakfast as a family. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air, but the warmth didn't reach me. I could almost hear the echoes of our laughter, the clinking of silverware, but now it all felt like a distant memory. I poured myself a cup of coffee, its bitter aroma a sharp reminder of the choices I had made. I needed to focus on the future, but the past lingered, a ghost haunting my thoughts. Mark emerged from his room, his eyes still heavy with sleep. He shuffled into the kitchen, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, glancing at the empty table. I could see the weight of confusion and concern etched on his face, and I hated that I was the cause of his distress. The burden of our situation rested on his young shoulders, and I wished I could shield him from it all. "Hey, sweetie," I replied softly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "How did you sleep?" As I poured a second cup of coffee, I felt a pang of guilt for my earlier plans. How could I be excited about starting anew when my son was grappling with his father's betrayal? Mark shrugged, staring into his cup as if it held the answers to his questions. I don't know. I just wish things were different, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart twisted at his words. I wish the same, but wishing wouldn't change our reality. I know, honey, I said, reaching out to touch his shoulder. We'll get through this together, I promise. I needed to believe that. I needed him to believe it too. As he took a sip of his coffee, his expression softened slightly, but the worry lingered in his eyes. I could feel the tension in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the elephant in the room that we were both trying to avoid discussing. Later that day, I met Lily at our favorite cafe, the one where we used to indulge in pastries and gossip about life. The familiar sense of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but today it felt different. This place, once a sanctuary of laughter and comfort, now served as a reminder of everything I had lost. As I sat down at our usual table, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I needed my friend's support now more than ever, and I wasn't sure how I would navigate this new reality without her by my side. Clara? Lily beamed as she arrived, her infectious smile brightening the dim corners of my heart. She settled into the chair across from me, her eyes sparkling with concern. How are you holding up? Her voice was gentle, but I could sense her urgency beneath the surface. I sighed, raking a hand through my hair. I'm trying to be strong, but it feels like everything is falling apart. I can't believe he would do this to us. The anger bubbled up inside me, a fierce wave that threatened to overwhelm my resolve. I thought we had something special, something worth fighting for. Lily reached across the table, her fingers brushing against mine. You did, Clara. You still do. Remember, this is his choice, not yours. You are not defined by his actions. Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit, but doubt crept in, whispering insidiously that maybe I had missed signs or ignored warnings. I just don't know how to move on from this, I admitted, my voice trembling with vulnerability. I feel so lost. Then let's create a plan, she said, her eyes gleaming with determination. You've got the strength to carve out a new life for yourself and Mark. This is your chance to redefine happiness on your terms. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself leaning into her confidence, feeling the flicker of hope igniting within me. Over the next few days, I began to sketch out what my new life could look like. With Lily's encouragement, I updated my resume, something I hadn't done in years. The thought of re-entering the workforce was daunting, but I also felt exhilarated by the idea of being in control of my own destiny. I started researching local job opportunities and even signed up for a few online courses to refresh my skills. Mark watched me intently as I transformed our living room into a makeshift office space. "Are you really going to do this, Mom?" he asked, his brows furrowed in uncertainty. "Yes," I said, meeting his gaze with a newfound determination. "It's time for us to build something fresh, something just for us." I could see a flicker of pride in his eyes, and that small spark made all the difference. As the days turned into weeks, I began to embrace my independence. I learned to cook meals that made us feel warm inside, experimented with new recipes that I never had time for before. I wanted to create a home that felt alive, vibrant with laughter and love, one that would provide us both with comfort and security in the wake of chaos. One evening, as we sat together at the table, sharing a simple yet delicious dinner, I realized how far we had come. Mark was laughing, and in that moment, it felt as though the weight of our shared burden had lifted slightly. I was still recovering from the heartbreak, but I was learning to find joy in the small things. The laughter we shared filled the space where despair had once taken root, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Through the challenges, I was not just reclaiming my life. I was redefining what it meant to be a family in the aftermath of betrayal. While David had chosen a different path, I was determined to pave a new one for Mark and me, filled with the love and resilience we deserved. As I settled into this new rhythm, each day became a testament to my resilience. I filled our home with plants and colors that reflected my hopes, creating a sanctuary for Mark and me. The empty spaces that once echoed with memories of David began to soften under the weight of fresh beginnings. I still felt the sting of betrayal, but I was learning to transform that pain into strength. It was in the mundane moments, cooking dinner, helping Mark with his homework, or simply sitting on the porch watching the sunset, that I found a semblance of peace. Mark, caught in the middle of this emotional upheaval, had been my guiding star. He was a reminder that I had a responsibility beyond my own hurt. He needed me to be strong and present. I noticed the subtle changes in him. The way he would hesitate before mentioning his father, or how his laughter sometimes felt forced. I wanted to shield him from the tumult, yet I knew I couldn't erase the reality of the situation. Instead, I focused on open communication, ensuring he felt safe enough to express his feelings, whatever they might be. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, a sudden wave of vulnerability washed over him. "Mom, do you think Dad's happy now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The question hung heavy in the air, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. I took a deep breath, searching for words that would comfort yet remain honest. "I think he is," I replied slowly. "But happiness can be complicated, especially when it comes at the cost of others." Mark nodded, still looking uncertain. I wanted him to understand that his father's choices did not define his worth or our family's love. Lily was my anchor during these times. She never failed to reach out, often bringing a batch of cookies or some absurdly funny movie that would have us both in stitches. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to visit a local market. It was vibrant and filled with life, colors dancing before us, laughter echoing in every stall. As we wandered, I felt a sense of normalcy returning. "You know," she said, her eyes glimmering with mischief, "we should host a dinner party. Just us and some friends, no drama, just good food and laughter." The idea ignited something within me. It felt like a step towards reclaiming what I thought I had lost. I spent the next few days planning the dinner, excitedly preparing a menu and sending invitations to close friends. The thought of laughter and warmth surrounding us brought a lightness to my heart. I envisioned a night filled with joy, where Mark could be a teenager without the weight of our family situation hanging over him. The day of the dinner, I transformed our home with fairy lights and fresh flowers, creating an atmosphere of celebration. As the doorbell rang and friends began to fill the space, I felt my heart swell with gratitude. Mark was initially shy, but soon found himself engaged in conversations, laughing freely with friends he hadn't seen in a while. I watched as he interacted, his personality shining through the layers of uncertainty. It was a reminder that he was still a kid, and I was determined to ensure he remained one. The evening unfolded with stories, laughter, and a delicious spread that even I couldn't believe I had managed to cook. It felt like a tangible shift, a moment where I could see the light in Mark's eyes, a stark contrast to the shadows that had loomed over us for far too long. As the night came to a close, I helped clear the table, feeling a sense of accomplishment. I had created a space for joy amid our upheaval, and that felt powerful. Mark approached me, a grin plastered on his face. "Can we do this again next weekend?" he asked, his enthusiasm infectious. "Absolutely," I replied, my heart swelling with pride. It was a small step, but it was one in the right direction. However, the reality of David's choices still lingered in the background, reminding me of the fragility of our happiness. One afternoon, a message from him appeared on my phone, unexpected and unwelcome. "Can we talk?" it read. My heart raced with a mix of dread and curiosity. I hadn't prepared for this moment, and yet a part of me craved closure. I debated whether to respond, contemplating the implications of reopening a wound that had just begun to heal. After a restless night, I decided to meet him, needing to confront the shadows of our past. As I entered the cafe where we had agreed to meet, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. David was already seated, a shadow of the man I once knew. His face bore the marks of stress, but there was something else. Regret? Guilt? I wasn't sure, and I felt a surge of emotions battling within me. He looked up as I approached, and for a brief moment, I saw the glimmer of the person I once loved. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice shaky. I nodded, unsure of how to respond. I wanted to scream, to let him know the pain he had caused, yet I also felt the need to hear what he had to say. As he spoke, words poured out about his struggles, his new life, and the choices that had led us here. Listening to him laid bare the enormity of our situation, but I realized something important. I was no longer that woman who would sacrifice herself for the sake of his happiness. Instead, I had grown into someone who was learning to prioritize my own well-being and that of my son. As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of relief. I had faced him, heard him, and most importantly, recognized my strength. This encounter marked another step in my journey toward healing. I was no longer bound by the chains of his choices. I was forging my own path with Mark by my side. The future still felt uncertain, but I knew I would face it head-on, ready to embrace whatever came next. As I walked away from the cafe, the cool air brushed against my skin, invigorating my senses. I could feel the weight of the past beginning to lift, each step away from David a small victory for my spirit. My thoughts drifted to Mark, wondering how he was coping with everything that had unraveled in our lives. I had made the decision to shield him from the full extent of the pain, focusing instead on nurturing a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. Yet I couldn't ignore the fact that he was grappling with his father's choices, and I yearned to be the strong anchor he needed right now. Once I arrived home, I found Mark in his room, headphones on and lost in the world of music. He looked so peaceful, but I knew it was a facade. Beneath that calm exterior, a storm was brewing. I quietly knocked on his door, and when he glanced up, I saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes. I motioned for him to take off the headphones, and as the music faded into silence, I sat down on the edge of his bed. "Hey, how are you doing?" I asked gently, hoping to break through the wall he had built around himself. He shrugged, a familiar gesture that masked deeper emotions. "I don't know, Mom. It's just, everything feels weird now." His voice was laced with confusion and sadness, the remnants of the life we once knew echoing in his tone. I took a deep breath, feeling the urge to protect him swell within me. "I know it's a lot to take in. Your dad and we're both figuring things out, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Mark nodded, but didn't meet my gaze. I could sense the tension building, a mix of loyalty to his father and his own hurt swirling in his heart. "Do you think he'll come back?" The question hung in the air, laden with hope and despair. I hesitated, weighing my words carefully. "I can't predict the future, sweetheart, but I want you to focus on what makes you happy, what you want to do next." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently, trying to offer solace in a world that felt anything but secure. He finally looked at me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. It's just hard to understand how he could leave, especially for someone else. His voice cracked slightly, and I felt a pang of guilt for not having shielded him from this reality sooner. "Sometimes adults make choices that are difficult to understand, and it's not your fault," I reassured him. "What matters is that we support each other through this." Mark wiped his eyes and took a deep breath, attempting to regain his composure. "I guess I just miss the way things used to be." His honesty struck a chord, and I felt the weight of my own emotions welling up inside me. I miss it too, more than I can say. But I believe we can create new memories, ones that are even better than before. I tried to inject some optimism into my words, hoping to inspire him. After a moment, he cracked a small smile, albeit tentative. "Like a fresh start?" he asked, testing the idea. "Exactly," I said, the vision of our new life beginning to crystallize in my mind. "We can reinvent ourselves, just the two of us. We're a team, and no matter what happens, we'll get through this together." The idea of partnership felt empowering, like I was no longer alone in this fight. As we began brainstorming what our new life could look like, I felt a flicker of excitement. We talked about taking road trips, visiting places we had only dreamed of, and even picking up new hobbies. The more we discussed, the more I realized that my son's laughter was the antidote I desperately needed, a reminder of the joy we could still share despite the looming shadows of the past. That evening, I decided to call Lily. I needed her steadfast support, especially now that I was navigating this uncharted territory. She answered on the second ring, her voice immediately comforting. "Clara, how did it go? Are you okay?" I could hear the concern lacing her words, and it made me feel understood. I recounted my day, the confrontation with David, and my heart-to-heart with Mark. "I feel hopeful," I admitted, surprising even myself with the strength of my resolve. Lily listened intently, her silence punctuated by the occasional reassuring hum. "You have a gift for finding light in the darkest of times, Clara. I'm so proud of you," she said, and I could hear the warmth in her tone. Her belief in me ignited a fire within, pushing me to embrace the changes ahead. "Thank you, Lily. I just want to make sure Mark feels safe and loved through all of this." "He's lucky to have you," she replied. "And remember, you don't have to do this alone. I'll be there every step of the way." I could feel her unwavering support wrapping around me like a warm embrace. And for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to truly believe that we would be okay. The days turned into weeks, and as I delved into my new routine, I began to rediscover pieces of myself that had long been hidden. I took up painting again, a passion I had neglected while caring for my family. Each brushstroke became an expression of my emotions, transforming pain into art. I even enrolled Mark in a local sports league to help him channel his feelings into something positive. The laughter that filled our home began to replace the echoes of sorrow, and slowly, the wound started to heal. One evening, as I looked at a canvas splattered with vibrant colors, I realized that this journey was not just about surviving David's betrayal. It was about thriving in my own right. I wasn't just Clara, the devoted wife. I was Clara, a mother, a friend, and an artist. My heart swelled with anticipation for what lay ahead, ready to embrace the unknown with open arms. As we navigated this new chapter, I felt compelled to invite others to share their stories of resilience and transformation. Each tale was a thread in the tapestry of our lives, weaving together the threads of heartbreak, healing, and hope. If you're reading this and have faced your own trials, know that your story matters. It can inspire someone else who is also struggling. Let's create a space where we can uplift one another, sharing the lessons learned along the way. Together, we can redefine what it means to move forward, to love fiercely, and to find joy again. As the reality of my situation sank in, I found solace in the small victories of everyday life. I had spent countless hours envisioning how I would approach this new chapter, and now, standing in my empty living room, the echoes of our past felt like a haunting reminder of what once was. The walls, stripped bare of memories and photographs, reflected the stark truth of my circumstances. I was no longer just Clara, the devoted wife. I was Clara, the woman learning to stand on her own. Mark was the first to sense the shift in our home. As a teenager, he was navigating his own emotional landscape, caught between his parents' choices and his desire for stability. One evening, while we were seated at the kitchen table, he looked up from his half-finished homework, his brow furrowed in concern. "Mom, are you okay?" The question hung heavy in the air, and I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "I'm all right, Mark," I replied, but the reassurance felt fragile, even to me. "Just trying to figure things out." He stared at me, assessing, as if he could peel back the layers of my bravado. I wished I could offer him more than a facade. The truth was, I was scared of the unknown, scared of what David's betrayal meant for our family. But more than that, I was determined to show Mark that strength could emerge from adversity. Lily had become my anchor during this tumultuous time. We spent hours together, sipping coffee and discussing everything from mundane chores to my hopes for the future. "You need to focus on yourself for a while," she encouraged one afternoon. "You've spent so much time caring for David and Mark that you forgot what it means to care for you." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and for the first time, I considered putting my needs on the same level as those I loved. With Lily's support, I began to explore the possibilities ahead of me. I enrolled in a community college course on graphic design, a passion I had shelved years ago. My evenings transformed from endless worrying about David and his new life to creative sessions where I poured my heart onto the canvas. Each brushstroke felt liberating, a release of pent-up emotions I had carried for far too long. There was something beautiful about this new chapter that I had yet to fully grasp, the joy of rediscovery. One day, while working on a piece that reflected my journey, a spark of inspiration ignited. I decided to showcase my work at a local art fair. Nervousness coursed through me as the date approached, but I couldn't back down now. I wanted to prove to Mark, and to myself, that I could forge a new path, one that didn't rely on David's choices or validation. My heart raced as I prepared for the event, but as I looked through my artwork, I realized that each piece told a story of resilience, of the strength I had found in the wake of betrayal. The day of the fair was filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. My booth was modest, adorned with my pieces that illustrated my journey from heartbreak to healing. As I stood there, watching people admire my work, a sense of pride washed over me. It wasn't just about the art, it was about reclaiming my identity. I was no longer defined by my marriage, but by my passion and creativity. Amid the crowd, I spotted Mark, standing a few feet away. His expression was a mixture of awe and disbelief. I smiled at him, and he approached, eyes wide. "Mom, these are amazing! I had no idea you were this talented." His words filled me with warmth, reinforcing the idea that I was not just a mother navigating chaos, but also a woman with dreams and ambitions. That evening, after the fair had ended, I returned home feeling lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had successfully shared my story, and in doing so, I realized it was time to have an honest conversation with Mark. I wanted him to understand that our family could still be whole, even if it looked different than before. "Mark," I began, finding the right words as we sat on the couch together, "I know things have been hard lately. I want you to know that no matter what happens between your dad and me, you're my priority." His gaze was fixed on me, and I could sense the turmoil swirling within him. "I want us to find our own way forward, together." He nodded slowly, the tension easing in his shoulders. "I get it, Mom. It's just weird. I miss how things used to be." "I do too, sweetheart. But sometimes things change, and that can open up new possibilities." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll figure this out, I promise." In the following weeks, as I delved deeper into my studies and embraced my artistic journey, I noticed a shift in our home. The atmosphere began to change, filled with laughter and warmth rather than lingering sadness. Mark seemed to thrive on our new dynamic, often sharing his day with me, seeking my advice on everything from school projects to friendships. This wasn't the end I had envisioned when I first learned about David's betrayal, but it was a beginning I had never anticipated. I was reclaiming my life, one brushstroke at a time, and realizing that love, in all its forms, was worth redefining.